contested through so many things, including how can we claim personhood while the personhood of others is being erased, contested, and questioned. So for me, the question has become, how do we give life to this concept of solidarity, Ubuntu, as envisioned by very wise people who wrote this, in a way that for me was very profound. Basically, I am because you are. Yes, I think it's a good way to summarize it. I am because you are. We are because you allowed us to be in community. So that's the challenge. So as we try and understand the impact of the conflict, which the panelists will be addressing today, on human beings, I think for me, when I think of a solidarity event, as opposed to, for example, an advocacy event or an academic event, when I think of a solidarity event, the question I'm calling upon us to all answer is, how can we be if others are not being? Or how can we ensure that others are being so that we can be? And be able to move as a Pan-African community in all its diversity, in all its fullness, and all its glory. So that's, for me, Christian, my reflections on how we can hold space today. And I welcome you all to be in this space, to connect, to contribute, and to share ideas on how we can do that collectively. So thank you so much, Christian.
Thanks a lot, Flavia. And just before we move on, and I think we have a good panelist who is going to explore that solidarity aspect. So Rachel Mwikali will help us navigate how the Pan-African solidarity could look like in this instance. And before I bring in the panelists, the three panelists for this section, I would like to ask colleagues who are on the tech side if you could share the link for the live streaming or indicate us where the live streaming is being done so that we can share with people if they want to share that link with others who are not here.
Hello. So if you go to any of on our Facebook social at Amnesty International Kenya, you'll be able to see it as a post. So it's a live sharing of YouTube of the event that's going on. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Is this thing working? Okay. So for this first part, I'm going to ask Jamobert Senga to join the panel, Clementine, and Sarah. Please, Karibu. Whichever way, Jamobert. Yeah, and I don't know how you want to do this. Should you want us to? Should you introduce yourself now, or you want to introduce yourself when you take the question? Which way would you want to? Sure, yes, absolutely. Jamobad, you want to start?
That's because Jean-Mauvais's not sure how to introduce himself anymore. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Jackson, and I work as Deputy Regional Director, leading our research team for the region.
Hi, everyone. My name is Clémentine de Montjoie. I'm a senior researcher at Human Rights Watch, covering the Great Lakes region.
No. It's down there somewhere. Yeah, you can use that as well.
Hello, I'm Jean-Maubert Senga. Until recently, I was a researcher with Amnesty International, and I'm currently working on issues of protection of civilians across many countries in Africa, including DRC.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. Another point as well, if you want to use the hashtag for this event is hashtag 6 million voices for justice for Congo. That is in reference to the number that is out there. It could be contested number of an estimated 6 million people who have died linked to the conflict in the Eastern DRC over the past 30 years. So for this section, we are going to start with the understanding of the ongoing crisis, understanding the root causes of what is happening in Eastern DRC, and what are the current dynamics on the ground. So I'll start with Jean-Maubert. Could you help us understand who is fighting, why they are fighting?
Thank you, Christian. This is probably one of the most difficult questions when it comes to the conflict in Eastern DRC. But I like to tell people that actually the situation in DRC is very simple to understand, unlike many other conflicts across the world. And I will start with a few facts. One, as most of you or all of you know, DRC is a huge country that spans almost from the Indian Sea. I mean, if you add Burundi, Rwanda, and Kenya or Tanzania, you get to the Indian Sea, all the way to the Atlantic Sea. But for me to get a passport, I didn't mention it, but I'm from Goma, Eastern DRC. For me to get a passport, I need to travel all the way to Kinshasa. It's 2,000 kilometers away to get a simple passport. We haven't had IDs for the last 40 years. We haven't had driving licenses for the last 5 or 7 years. Driving licenses. So ask me, how do you ensure order on the roads if people do not have driving licenses? You don't know who can drive or not. Just something as simple as that. What I'm heading to is that, to me, the root cause of everything in DRC is the state. And that makes it simple, I guess, I hope. I don't know whether the DRC state is a failed state, is a captured state, as some people have argued, or a non-existent state, or whatever. I think maybe these characteristics all apply together. But to me, the epitome of the problem in DRC is the lack or the dysfunctioning state. And this goes to a state that would, ensure that everyone is safe, for example. So we've heard repetitively that Rwanda and Burundi and Uganda have waged war of aggression against the DRC. And we see statements over and over. Rwanda is attacking us. Rwanda, Rwanda, Rwanda. Which is true. But the real question is, why is Rwanda attacking DRC? And why is DRC not defending itself against Rwanda or against any other person or country? And that goes to the inability or the DRC's inability to defend itself, to have an army, a police institution, and other security institutions that can guarantee its sovereignty and independence. You also hear that DRC has dozens of armed groups, especially in the east. And again, the question is, why? And if you can answer, you can find a lot of valid answers, but ultimately you will get to the state that is not capable of protecting all the communities, ensuring that the Hunde and the Nande and the Tutsis and the others can live in harmony. And if anyone has a grievance, they can go to a state, the justice system that will handle the problem as any other state does. So that's, to me, the main cause or the root cause, the real root cause of conflicts in DRC. Now, because of this dysfunctioning state, many actors have used the lack of, have used it to fill the gap, to fill the void. And this includes armed groups, Congolese armed groups, but also foreign armed groups. For example, the ADF, which people don't talk much about, but which is probably one of the deadliest and the ugliest armed groups in DRC, which is affiliated with ISIS. Or the FDLR, who are remnants of the Rwandan Hutus who were involved in the genocide in Rwanda in 1994, and who, for the last 30 years, have been in Eastern DRC attacking Congolese, of course, but also constituting a threat for the Rwandan security. Then you have all kind of, there are Burundian rebels, there are South Sudanese rebels, and many others. But you also have the state forces, the government forces, which are as bad as the armed groups that they claim to fight. And this, again, goes back to the government, which is not able even to know how many soldiers. If you ask a Congolese official, how many, what is the size of your army? Nobody will be able to tell you. So the Congolese army, Congolese police, intelligence agencies are also very disorganized, and regularly they commit serious human rights violations and crimes, which Amnesty and others, Human Rights Watch and others document on a regular basis. There are land issues. So as I said, the state is the real cause of the problems, and these, to me, are factors. So, for example, issues around access to land. Eastern DRC is the most populated area in DRC. And when we speak about Eastern DRC, we are speaking about mainly Ituri, North Kivu, and South Kivu provinces. These provinces border Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, respectively. You can expand a bit to the south, Tanganyika, or to the north, Uele regions, or even to the center, Maniema. But I think the three provinces are the ones with the main problems. And they are also the most populated ones. But these provinces are almost the size of Germany. So the three provinces themselves, they are almost the size of Germany, with very poor roads. It's very difficult to move from one town or city to another because of poor infrastructure, but also security and other issues. But this region is also, it has a very good weather, which is, it is very fertile. Because it borders countries that are very populated, it is also naturally populated, which has created over time issues around access to land. And because there is no state that can solve them in a satisfactory manner, then everyone find themselves fighting for their land. Because if you don't fight, there is no state that will protect you. So Then you have identity issues that are more or less linked to the land, especially for the Kinyarwanda-speaking population. Now, this goes back to the colonial time when the borders were drawn in that region, like in many other regions in Africa. And part of the Kinyarwanda-speaking people found themselves in what became DRC, Congo, at the beginning of the last century, and others were on the Rwandan side. But they speak the same language, they have the same culture, but some are citizens of DRC, some others are citizens of Rwanda, and even Burundi and Uganda, but mostly Rwanda. And Rwanda plays a particular role because I think of historic events, including the conflict between the Hutus and Tutsis in Rwanda back in the 50s, and then the genocide, of course, and the flow of refugees. I think 2 or 3 million Hutu refugees who flew into the then Zaire, and yeah, so it has had a particular place in those dynamics. Now, part of these people feel, for good or bad reasons, that they are not accepted as fully Congolese citizens like others. And on that, I mean, we can debate, but there is a lot to say. For me, the key takeaway on that identity aspect is that there is a need for the DRC to recognize the citizenship of these people. But as I said, even other communities do not necessarily have that recognition because nobody has an ID. If you ask any Congolese, even the president doesn't have an ID. You can have a passport, but virtually anyone with some hundreds of dollars can get a passport, a Congolese passport. So what matters is not, when you have a Congolese passport, it doesn't tell whether you are actually a Congolese or not. It could mean that you have enough money to afford it. That's all. But maybe the exclusion of these people is seen in the public discourse from politicians, opinion leaders, and others. And there is a particular distinction between those Congolese, Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese who are Hutus and the others who are Tutsis. Because, again, of the history of this region, and the fact that the regime in Rwanda is dominantly Tutsi, that has had implications in the DRC. And because of the successive wars since 1996, which have been led by the regime in Rwanda, Tutsis are systematically associated with the power in Rwanda, which is not fair, but it's a fact. And that leads to more exclusion, which Tutsis experience more than the Hutus. So just to conclude on this, mindful of time, the current situation and the dynamics. So the current M23 crisis started in November 2021. It's been more than 3 years. And it has been for the same reasons that they've been fighting for over the last 30 years. So issues around identity, land, governance in the DRC, etc. But those are the official reasons. Also security guarantees for Rwanda, especially with regard to the Hutu rebels, the FDLR. But unofficial reasons are that nobody really feels like the DRC is willing or even capable of ensuring stability and protecting everyone in that area. And I believe that's something new with the current wave of conflict, where actors feel like they need to fix it once and for all, their way. They want to do it their way, even if it means controlling that area for the longest, or, maybe annexing it one day. I'm not sure. I'm speculating, but it's clear that the goal is not to share power as it used to be 10 years ago. The goal is to ensure that M23, with Rwandan support, can control effectively that area and ensure that the Tutsi refugees can return, that they can fight the FDLR as they claim, etc. Even if that means for the DRC losing part of the control of in the area. There have been many efforts, as many of you are aware, from the region and the broader international community. But the way it has been addressed has been business as usual. Meetings, conferences, statements, talks, and nothing to address the root causes, as I mentioned. Nobody really talks about impunity, for example, which is, I forgot to mention, but it's one of the many reasons why people feel like they can continue to kill and commit crimes without consequences. And it has been going on for 30 years. Nobody really addresses this. Nobody really is addressing the issues around governance in DRC, around building a security, an army that is Republican and professional, that can defend DRC against all threats, wherever they come from, including getting rid of the FDLR or preventing Rwanda from doing whatever it does in the East. Not just Rwanda, but Burundi, Uganda, and others. Can I ask? Yeah, sure.
Just for time, because some of the points that you want to mention could come from the interactive session with the audience, to bring in the human rights impacts of what is happening currently with Clementine. So Jean-Robert has exposed a bit, on the root causes. The key, I liked how you put it, Jean-Robert, a dysfunctioning state that creates a void for all of this to happen. But then what is the human impacts of that void? So in what you have been documenting, what you have been observing, what are the human rights violations that are being committed in those provinces, and what is the humanitarian situation that you're observing at the moment?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think as Jean-Robert said, this iteration of the M23 conflict re-emerged in late 2021, so it's not in any way a new conflict, and many of the abuses that we're documenting today we've seen unfold for the last 3 years. I think obviously the capture of Goma and then Bukavu has brought a lot of international attention to this conflict. But since kind of 2022 onwards, throughout the various offensives of the M23, with an increasingly important Rwandan support, we've documented how M23 fighters have entered villages, killed people, particularly people they suspected of being against them, raped, committed gang rapes, looted, destroyed property. The situation already throughout 2024 was, we were seeing very serious abuses being committed at a really concerning scale. And both Amnesty and Human Rights Watch issued reports documenting serious abuses against civilians. And I think it's important to have that background in mind, that people have already had to flee multiple times people were already seeking refuge in displacement camps around Goma when this latest kind of offensive took place. And last year, for example, we documented how, you know, the incredible pressure that displaced people were under in these camps around Goma that were housing between or probably over 500,000 people who were not only facing indiscriminate shelling from the Rwandan and M23 positions around Goma, but also abuses by the Congolese army and the Wazalendo, the armed groups they were allying themselves with, which completely compounded the situation. So the human rights situation and humanitarian situation was already pretty catastrophic before this latest offensive. Now we're seeing a continuation of some of these patterns, and also I think a worsening of the situation because the M23 has now captured, as I said, Goma, Bukavu, the two provincial capitals. The airport in Goma is still closed, which is seriously hampering the delivery of humanitarian assistance. Of course, the fighting took place in Goma, a very densely populated city, and that had huge consequences for civilians, as was highlighted by MSF and the ICRC, and for all of the humanitarian agencies to deliver aid. We also saw the M23 order the dismantlement of the displacement camps around Goma, where people were living, without providing any financial support or any kind of support for people to return home. Some of the people that we interviewed after the order had been given for them to leave said they had no idea what kind of home they were going back to, even if their houses were still there or if they had been destroyed. And generally, we've heard the M23 claim, and this hasn't just happened around Goma, it also happened after they captured Minova, but claiming that there's no need for displacement camps because M23 is restoring order and stability, and therefore people should just go home. And that's very much the image that they are trying to project as they've set up administrative structures, put in place new authorities, whether M23 or AFC, and we're seeing the kinds of abuses that, again, have become a bit of a hallmark for M23, that we're hearing reports of people suspected of looting, suspected of thievery, being killed. We're still hearing reports of sexual violence, as well as reports of forced recruitment and forced labor throughout the areas that M23 controls. So not just in Goma and Bukavu. Another really concerning aspect is the repression of dissenting voices, which has been a hallmark of the M23 and the way that they have behaved in the areas that they control. And you know, we released a report recently documenting the threats that were being made including by new AFC, new M23 officials against human rights defenders and journalists, detentions, arbitrary detentions, and essentially trying to prevent people from doing their work. And that's obviously going to have an impact on the visibility that we can have of the human rights situation on the ground. I think it was even more concerning because, and I'm sure many people in this room know it better than I do, but many people had fled the advance of the M23 and were seeking refuge in Goma, in Bukavu. And so when those two cities were captured, they were left with nowhere to go. Some managed to go through Burundi. Obviously, fleeing through Rwanda carries its risks for certain individuals. And so we really saw an incredibly concerning situation develop for human rights defenders and journalists. And we were told by some sources that over 200 human rights defenders and journalists had applied for protection support, which gives a sense of how dire the crisis is. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that for the general overview of the situation now.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something that I think is very crucial, and that has been we have discussed this with Jean-Maubert so many times, it's been 30 years. Repetitively, people are being subjected to these violations all this time. So women are being raped, gang raped several times. It's not a once in a while thing. It's 30 years of all you just explained there in terms of forced recruitment, which it's that level of, in terms of légèreté. It's like, yeah, we can have another group with all the consequences that it has on people's lives. People being displaced several times. And yes, when will this end? So yes, the repetition of these violations are quite, yeah, I don't know what qualification that we need to put it in this region, but as someone coming from this region, yeah, when this crisis escalated in January, I was just like, okay, it's a bit too much. It just stopped when it started, but now it's really like a bit too much. So I'm gonna bring in Sarah Jackson to talk a bit of the role of regional and international actors in these conflicts. That can play a positive or negative role. We heard Jean-Maubert, mentioning that, they keep conferencing, they keep talking to each other, doing these political deals, but to what end? Why are we here 30 years after? Are we going to be here again, in the next 10 years, discussing on the same thing with the same international, regional communities that struck the deals, but what next?
Thanks, Christian. I think what you said there is just so powerful, that there are, in essence, people and communities that have come of age, that have grown up, that have grown old under this level of violence, this cyclical violence. Jean-Maubert has so clearly painted this picture of years of violence steeped in the root causes that he's outlined. And I've been working on these issues for almost 20 years now. And you look at the RCD Goma, the CNDP, the M23, this cyclical crisis that is coming about because of that failure of the Congolese state that you painted, Jean-Maubert, within that regional context. And you also mentioned, Jean-Maubert, that there are actors now looking to resolve this once and for all. So it feels like it's same, but it's different this time. And I think that's what you're also surfacing, Christian, that activists, that civic actors, members of the human rights community in Congo, in the region, globally, are just saying enough is enough. People have lived through this so many times. And one of the things that justice is meant to bring about is guarantees of non-repetition. And one of the things that has never been tried in this context, not at any meaningful form or any form of scale, is justice. And so I want to bring it back to the regional and international engagement with the conflict in this moment. I won't detail the roles of the different actors involved regionally in this crisis: Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi, Southern African forces. There are many, and I think that's been very well articulated already. But really to say that there have been regional efforts to engage with the crisis. Two major ones that you will know about. There is the Nairobi process run through the East African community, which really sought to look at the issues of armed groups in Eastern DRC. And I think when DRC joined the East African community, at least in Kenya and this part of the region, there was a hope that this might help have a bigger community above the identity politics and colonial borders that could seek to seek towards a resolution of the crisis. And this evidently has not been successful. I was in a meeting recently of Kenyan private sector actors who are feeling very nervous about their investments in DRC. You know, there's many knock-on effects of this conflict, and therefore many vested interests across the whole region to see a resolution of this. There's been the Luanda process as well, run from Angola, and that one looked more at DRC-Rwanda relations and led to a ceasefire agreement, but that process really broke down in December, leading to the latest escalation in the crisis. So we've seen engagement from the East African community, from SADC, that have lost forces in DRC and chosen to withdraw after that. We've also seen engagement of different actors outside of the region, and most recently Qatar has come into the fray, and Qatar has significant economic interests in Rwanda, and managed to bring together the Rwandan and Congolese presidents. I mean, in a way, it's quite a feat to bring them together, and I think it speaks to the rising interest, the rising engagement, and the rising influence of Gulf and Middle East actors in the region, from Somalia to Sudan, and now even, all the way to DRC, all the way to Kinshasa. That geographical picture that Jean Maubert painted for us, essentially from one side of the continent almost to the other. So Qatar has brought two of the key principles together around this. But I suppose one of my questions is, as we talk about these different engagements, is will Qatar be thinking about justice? When we go back to the root causes that Jean Maubert has articulated so well, who are the actors that will be seeking to do things differently? The region, the world, because global actors have many interests in Congo, including economic interests around mining, and we hear this coming up more and more that Congo's minerals will be essential for the green transition. Congo's minerals will be essential for addressing climate change and so on. So those global interests are only going to get greater and greater in this moment. But one of the key things that hasn't been tried is justice. Perhaps I'll touch on two other things. One is the US. I think there was a sense that the timing of this escalation was likely linked to the Trump presidency in the US, that actors sought to take advantage of the instability and chaos that this is causing to move forward on their ambitions in Eastern DRC. And then, of course, the US government surprised many actors by issuing sanctions. So it's still very unclear what US foreign policy will be on many issues, including in the Great Lakes region. And then the EU. Now, the EU has taken various steps, which have included reviewing a critical minerals agreement that they have with Rwanda, to see if that could inadvertently be contributing to human rights violations in Eastern DRC. They've also reviewed defense agreements as well, and they've issued various sanctions against Rwandan officials, M23 officials, and a gold refinery. These have been received differently by different groups, and I think one of the things moving forward that is going to be so key is that there is a joined up regional and international approach in this moment, that different actors are working together with Congolese actors for a solution to this, and that is rooted in a more sustainable resolution of this crisis that addresses these root causes. So it has to go beyond conferencing, beyond statements. It has to really be something profound. And that's where I think this solidarity comes in. I was very touched by what you said, Flavia, about the mutuality, the solidarity, the connection, that sense of linked liberation coming through in what you said. And it's really the activism, the attention, the way in which different actors in the region and globally stand in solidarity with Congo in this moment that will create the environment in which regional and international actors take their decisions. And so people who are here today, people who are listening in on the live stream, Amnesty members around the world, others, you have a role to play in shaping the context in which diplomacy will happen. And it seems almost guaranteed that if justice is not put at the forefront of that, it will have no place in the outcome of this. So it is really for people to stand in solidarity with Congolese, to be pushing other actors to really address these issues in a very profound way, so that people who are experiencing these violations 30 years ago will not be experiencing them, or their children or their grandchildren will not be experiencing them 30 years from now. So I'll leave it there. Thanks, Christian.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. And I think, would any of these regional actors, international actors, think justice? I think that question is really at the center of what will happen next. That will define whether or not we are not in this same situation 10 years from now. And perhaps just before I bring in our friend artist for a very short 3-5 minutes of music before we can take questions. Jean-Maubert, if you can briefly talk about the national process that Senko and SSA is doing, because I think to kind of compare that with what Sarah just explained in terms of the regional actors, what they're doing.
Thank you.
I think it's working, yeah.
Thank you, Christian.
Oh, no, it's not working.
Thank you. So last year, the SSA stands for Église du Christ au Congo, which is the regrouping of Protestant churches in DRC, and Senko is the Catholic bishops, or Catholic, the Association of Catholic churches in DRC. These two churches make up about 70% of the population in the DRC, so they are extremely influential, both in terms of the numbers of their followers, but also their role in the socio-economic fabric making of the DRC. And historically, they have, especially the Catholic, have played a very important role, political role, I mean, including during the colonialism, when they were part of course, the system, and then after independence, they more or less stood for the people against the Mobutu regime and the successive rebellions that have taken place. So last year, they came together. I mean, they had already come together after the messy elections in 2018 that brought President Tshisekedi to power. And they have decided to work together to address the root causes of the conflict, but also issues around democracy, elections, etc. And last year, they came up with this initiative which they call Social Pact. They want to build a new consensus, a new social contract for the DRC and the wider region. And it's probably the most serious and the most important peace initiative that the DRC has known in decades. Unfortunately, beyond their ability to meet with leaders across the region and beyond, it doesn't seem to be genuinely supported. So their aim is to, first of all, address the issues internally, the issues basically that I mentioned, state building, accountability and justice, cohesion among different communities and ethnic groups and tribes and regions, as well as addressing corruption and many other issues. And then regionally, they want to challenge countries in the region, especially Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, to work together for a shared prosperity and to stop fighting each other so that they can work for the people in the region to benefit from peace. So that's the initiative that is going on, which I believe deserve everyone's support, more support, genuine support, so that it can come to fruition.
But that process include justice, because I think that's...
Yeah, so I mean, so far it's the weakest part of their initiative, and I was personally critical about it. I had a chance to meet some of them when they were visiting Nairobi in February, and I raised actually the issue of justice and accountability, which is very tiny in their program, but I think they are willing to address it, and it's also the role and responsibility of human rights organizations to raise it and to help them frame it in a way that serves the ultimate goal of peace.
Thank you so much, Jean-Maubert. And I think that's where our movement really comes in. Sarah, you mentioned it, Flavia, you mentioned it, you know, us coalescing, making sure that we make specific demands on justice and accountability. Because yes, as Sarah said, we have tried so many things. The amount of signatures and agreement that have been done with the DRC, I don't know if there is any other context that can compete with what has happened in that region. So we need to try that one thing that the people today in Kisangani, we had, Jean-Maubert was in Kisangani last year and another colleague, people still craving for justice and accountability. And that is really key to make sure that we address, you know, some of the root causes of the situation. Yes?
Maybe to complete a bit on that, it's important to see who are the actors in this conflict. Yeah. When you see at who is doing what, you understand why accountability and justice are important. So let's just take the M23 case. Don't get me wrong. I mean, M23 is not the only problem in DRC. There are many other armed groups which are, you know, wreaking havoc on people, but it's the most publicized, maybe commented. So let's just take it as an example. M23 has a political wing which is called AFC, Alliance Fleuve Congo. This group was created here in Nairobi 2 years ago by the former head of the Electoral Commission in DRC. The very guy who proclaimed Tshisekedi after a fake election in 2019. So this guy was working with Kabila, President Kabila, and Kabila then decided that people's vote did not matter. He wanted his own wish. So he imposed Tshisekedi to become the president, and Tshisekedi was proclaimed by the then president of the Electoral Commission, who is now leading the AFC, the rebel group, and claiming to be a freedom fighter. Who he actually claimed, interestingly, that he messed up, and it was his responsibility to fix the mess. But in the process, he's committing, or the people he's leading are committing what Clementine described. Then you have Kabila himself, who came out recently, and it has become very clear to everyone that he's willing to play the role. Himself, he might be saying, I messed up by bringing Tshisekedi to power, I need to fix this. But this is the guy who he installed Tshisekedi. Now he's saying that the problem is Tshisekedi and the solution is Tshisekedi, if you remember. But he has led the DRC for 18 years. And during those 18 years, there was another M23, and there were other dozens of armed groups. Then on the other side, you have Tshisekedi, who was relatively new 6 years ago when it comes to committing crimes. I remember how excited we were. I mean, we were like, he's the less evil. Probably he will be willing to address issues of justice and accountability. But, 6 years seem to be a very long time, and he has gotten his share of crimes. But who are his allies? Jean-Pierre Bemba, whom many of you know. This guy spent 10 years in ICC for crimes that he had committed in Central African Republic. But actually, he was also he was the leader of one of the three main rebel groups back in the 90s, the MLC movement, which was backed by Uganda, and which committed very serious crimes, including cannibalism, rape, and mass rape, etc. And now this is the most vocal advocate of the Tshisekedi regime. He's a minister in the government. And I can go on and on. So on all the sides, the rebels, the so-called people who are bringing freedom, and the government are both criminals, let me call it, for what it is. So you have criminals in Kinshasa, criminals in Goma, Bukavu, criminals in Kigali, in Kampala, just all criminals.
I remember our colleague from South Sudan published a report on we can't prosecute ourselves. Was it that the title of the report? Yes, so it gives me that feeling that all these people are involved in human rights violations, serious human rights violations, and they wouldn't have justice at their heart's interest. So with that, to transition into the solidarity discussion, I will ask George if you could help us with, calm down a bit to digest what we have had. Yes.
Attends. Je reviendrai. All right? I hope you enjoy it.
Nakei kasi lobi na kozonga mobembo ezali ndeliwa tebo. Nakei kasi lobi na kozonga mobembo ezali ndeliwa tebo. Totika bamboka musika tokende koluka bamoima tokoma mitilengano nani asunga yo. Totika bamboka musika nani asunga kayo. Tokoma mitilengano lake kasi lobi na kozonga mobembo ezali ndeliwa tebo. Nakei kasi lobi na kozonga mobembo ezali ndeliwa tebo. Atandele nakozonga Kinshasa, atandele nakozonga Goma, nakozonga Bukavu mama nakozonga Kinshasa nakei kasi lobi nakozonga mobembo ezalindeli watu nakei kasi lobi nakozonga mobembo ezalindeli watu. Merci. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Blessing, merci Georges. Oui, je reviendrai. Je crois que we need to recognize, in the audience, some of us are really coming from DRC. Many of you have fled this ongoing situation, so we are standing in solidarity with you and really appreciate the fact that you can come here to be with us today. So all our sympathy. Yeah, it's reminded me of a very, interesting moment where we had to flee Burundi, going into DRC, not knowing that you'll ever go back home. So that song is really something that really speaks deeply to my heart as well. Rachel, please join the panel. I'll ask the question from here. And really, I would like you to introduce yourself first, and then if you can pick from what Flavia said, what Sarah said in terms of, the solidarity, the Kenyan, Pan-African solidarity that is needed in this particular moment. We have had the suffering that, people in the DRC have been going through over these 30 years. And I really think that we need that, Kenyan, Pan-African solidarity. Please.
Thank you so much, Christian. And to Amnesty East African Office and Kenya for organizing it's a solidarity event. My name is Rachel Mwekali. I'm a Pan-African feminist activist working with two movements. That's one, Pussy Power Movement, is a feminist radical movement, and then Coalition for Grassroots Human Rights Defenders Kenya. And before I comment in terms of also solidarity, I can just request we stand up for a moment of silence for the comrades that we have lost, for the sisters and brothers that we have lost in DRC, and just standing with the families and everybody. Thank you, can I have a seat? So, for me, one as a Pan-African and as an activist, and I'm happy that Naomi, you're also here, coming from communities that we have experienced also discrimination and injustice, and also coming from a moment that all of us Kenyans last year, through one femicide movement and reject finance bill, we saw the world standing with us, true or false. We saw the world loving us in all ways that would have imagined that maybe people are not looking at us, but we felt that love from across the world and even from our neighbors. And one of the things that I feel even as a Pan-African and as an activist, we also have to put pressure from our governments that are neighbor of DRC, including my own government here in Kenya, because also they are catalyzing violence in DRC, and we must hold them accountable. As much as we are saying Ruto must go, also we need to add it, Ruto must go to the level of the violence that they are watching going on to DRC. And then also to the other comrades that are also from the neighboring country, however, I don't believe in the boundaries, is that we have to also hold our heads of state accountable. African Union is very silent. We need to know which African Union is African Union if we can stand with DRC, Congo, or even Sudan. And then also from other points that I feel why we are also mad and angered, including myself, is out of love for DRC. And it's okay to be mad so that we're able to fight for DRC and for DRC. And this is something that I feel, and I saw it work when, for example, Thulani Maseko, comrade, was murdered in Swaziland, or the way we would call it, Eswatini. Most of the comrades in Pan-African didn't know Thulani, but it just happened I met Thulani in a conference, an African movement, convening in South Africa that is called Baraza, which also we are going to do it next month. And seeing him being a human rights defender is what also brought rage to us, that we managed to organize a powerful Justice for Thulani, and all of you, including Amnesty, you know the fruit that Justice for Thulani, despite is not there, but we have pushed for accountability on Justice for Thulani. And I was so happy even walking, when we were going to do the interview, seeing there's a room named Thulani Maseko. And the kind of connection that we saw even bringing within the human rights space is what I feel the least we can do is all of us organize that for DRC. Make noise, as they call it, noise, because if we don't make that noise, that is a revolutionary noise, they're going to not do anything. And we can't ignore what, I love what also you said, all of you, the panelists, amazing panelists and comrade, that solidarity is not solidarity if there's no accountability and justice. It's not. So as much as we are pushing for solidarity, it's also from an authentic point of view. You have had all the actors. And some of these actors also are funders of human rights organizations. So also we need to ask those hard questions. You can't fund an oppression, then fund advocacy. You can't. It's like, excuse me using the words, like a boyfriend who promises you heaven and gives you hell. Because they're the ones engaged. We have had the role also the EU is doing, and the US, and now with Trump. And if it's about fighting for our land, we know also for Kenyans, for Mau Mau, liberators, on how they fought, we have to do that for DRC. And that's also from my point as an individual and some of the intersecting movements I'm part of, Christian, and also as an activist, because also people have stand even for us, including me. And I know what it means sometimes when people can think it's a joke, just saying justice or 6 million for DRC, it means a lot, even in your own Twitter. And that's why I can challenge anybody in the room, including myself, even if English is not our first language, let's go online and post 6 million voices and justice for DRC. Please, please, please. We are going for a very big convening in Ghana next month called Baraza. And one of the issues that we are pushing, and also having our comrade like Duke from Lucha in DRC, is that we're able to show what solidarity looks like from a Pan-African point of view, because we have seen good practice. Even there was the Galamsey in Ghana. And one of the commitments, even from the team, and I know we have been discussing, is that we put the voice of most of our African countries, including DRC, in terms of solidarity. And also including protection of the activists that are working on the issue, because activists, we are the first respondents to any cases of violation in our communities. Journalists, and I'm happy to see the Kenyan journalists, thank you so much, because we need your voice. I can critique you back here home. However, for now for DRC, we really need your voice because the media is quiet. Give the narrative that you are listening here. International media, international community, but even resourcing the work that even Amnesty is doing and many other organizations. Because also my challenge, Christian, is around when you talk about solidarity, is that a lot of these actors that I've had, they're shying away from resourcing to push for justice for DRC. So what does it mean even for us as Africans and African philanthropists? We have African philanthropies who believe in justice, or even African businesses that believe in justice business being done, is also talking to them, for them to understand that they can't even do business if there's no peace. They can't do business if there's no human rights. Because who are you going to do business with if rights are not respected? Who? We need to push that, because reality is that it's about us and about our people. And then the other point that I feel also from a feminist perspective, Flavian, that you can also push all of us, is amplifying all these issues. Women are going through rape. girls, even from an SRHR perspective, people are suffering. Our people are suffering. Our men are suffering extrajudicial killings. Femicide, because also it's linked with femicide when women are getting killed. It's linked also to being taken away your sovereignty when you're pushed away from your land, from your homes. So, Sarah, when you meet with the big people in those rooms, we can't talk about climate change if we don't talk about communities' home, if we don't talk about land. Because reality is that where you're being moved away from your home, it takes away your power of existence and identity. And I've experienced it even when I went to exile in 2018. If there's something bad, it's you being forced to move of your home without your consent or without you saying, I'm going. But the fact that you're being chased away, and then we are seeing also the crisis around refugee issue, we must stand with each other. And that's why I'm requesting for the viewers online, for everybody in the room, please, 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 let's stand with DRC. The players we have seen, they are the same, based on the actors you mentioned, my comrade. The playbook, trying to pretend, we have seen it also in Kenya, they are doing similar games. So also Kenyans don't think we are safe, we are not safe. We are not. Uganda, the same, we have seen with activists. Rwanda, we are seeing the same. The whole continent, the same game they are playing of oppression and sanitizing each other. It means now we need a common enemy, and we can't allow them to use the divide of rule of we are fighting for our people. Which people are you fighting for? When we are seeing Kagame saying, I'm fighting for Rwandese, I'm coming to fight. So for the Rwandese, they should not listen to that narrative of Kagame saying, I'm coming to fight for my people. Because now it will turn to the Kenyan game of tribalism. Now people are we are being put against each other in order for oppressor to benefit in DRC. And this is something as Africans, as comrades, as also activists in the human rights sector, we can't, and feminist movement, we can't watch. DRC war is our war. African is our business. And I know there are a lot of conversation even about now, most of the countries mentioned also by Sarah, saying we need to make Africa equal partner. Which equal partner? Strategy is changing, but we can't say equal partner when they are financing genocide in DRC. So as I finish some of the things even around doing, it's also like all of us, I know Naomi have also been doing Justice for Palestine. Because also for me, to be honest, we have also to decolonize on how we do our solidarity even as activists. I remember when also there was Ukraine war, most of us stood with Ukraine passionately until today. But I don't agree on this principle of solidarity when it's, let's say, a global north country, all resources are being channeled there. And then when it's African country, we are cutting funding, no money. And then we are not making a lot of noise about it, calling out even some of the oppressor. I don't agree that the fact that we are seeing what's happening in the region, that even our heads of states are quiet. They're not talking. So if really our heads of state means solidarity, we need to see them talk, including my own president. Because I'm a voter in Kenya, they have not denied me my ID. I need to use the power of my ID in holding Ruto accountable on DRC issue. If you're in Uganda, the same. If you are in Congo where we are seeing the issue not being taken serious by the heads of state and different actors, we need to push. As I finish, there's power in activism. We all listen to our brother singing. We could feel it. Painful. So we have also to support artists in the role they play and in coming up and ensuring that we're able to push, whether it's influencers also, but not see them as entertainers. They're not entertainers. They're here to teach us. And that's also like some of the spaces that we can be able to do people-to-people solidarity, movement-to-movement solidarity, and all the love to all the DRC comrades, brothers and sisters, and everybody for doing important work, and Amnesty for standing in place in any organization that is in here. Thank you.
Rachel, no, I think I attended I've told this to my colleagues so many times, But I think it's very important because it touches to your last point, the Cheche Bookstore Solidarity event on the DRC. And there were, your friend Fried was one of the panelists, and another young Congolese. And there was a question that was asked, what keeps you going? What gives you hope? And it was music. And in some of the comments that I've seen online in particular, from people from outside of DRC, when characterizing or depicting Congolese, like, they only know how to dance. They only focus on music. I think Ruto has mentioned that, Samia did the same, but that day I understood why. It's what people hang on for, that hope, that better future that they want for their country. And I'm really grateful that you accepted to come here and help us, smooth our emotions, but also, come close to the issues that we are discussing here today. And yes, we need to yeah, it's not only artists. You are doing the work, immense work of, helping people to hang on, to continue having that hope. Thank you, sir, Rachel. I mean, I wrote this, make revolutionary Pan-African noise. And I think it's something that we need to hang on and do. So I'm going to open the floor for 30 minutes so that we are on time. Yeah, the audience, if you have a question, a contribution, but just be very concise in your intervention. And if you want to introduce yourself, your name, and then you can say who you want to address the question to. I'll start with Monsieur.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. My name is Bidal. I come from South Sudan. So we face the same problem from Sudan, South Sudan, now to DRC. That's why we're standing in solidarity. And just to reflect on the first question that was raised to you on the root causes of the conflict, having cross-examined, I just have some particular snapshot. How has the legacy of the Belgian colonial rule, particularly the arbitrary drawing of borders and the divide and rule strategy, contributed to the current ethnic tensions and the political instability? The second question is, how has the resource exploitation also contributed to the political instability, knowing very well Congo is blessed with a lot of resources? And when it comes to the conflict dynamics, this divide and rule policies is what has eaten up my country, South Sudan, where we live along ethnic and tribal lines. How has been the case in the Democratic Republic of Congo? Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It's Vidal, right? Vidal. Yeah, we need a solidarity event for all these countries. Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia, that's warming up to the idea of, more fighting, or have already started. Somalia, it's quite a lot. Yes, Monsieur, and then we'll take the two, and then we'll let the panel to respond, and then we'll take another round.
Thank you for the floor. My name is Jubeli Kasai from Goma. I reached Goma 2 weeks ago. So I reached Nairobi, 2 weeks ago, and I'm an activist with Lucha. When I see Jean Maubert, I see people who inspired us to fight for change in our country. And I'm here with John Katikomo and Justin Mutabesha, who came after me because the threat were growing every single day. When the M23 came to Goma, we thought activists had to flee, but we also thought some other activists have to stay to give light to the world about what's going on. But as they took the city, they have created terror. And sadly, activists, all of them are moving. And we are afraid for our community, for our people, who now are miserable, being sentenced to silence, and who can't speak. And I want to thank Clementine, who invited me here, and who I've been talking to for a long time, but it was just the first time to meet her. At the same time, going to the question, I think standing in solidarity with the Congolese people is understanding the problem of Congo the way they understand it. And I feel like people don't get the problem the way we really get it, which makes me feel so much miserable. There is no person who should be listened to who wants to solve a problem with violence, and in no sense we have to forgive the people who I will write.
No, take your time, Jubilee. Take your time. Take your time. And I think in these moments where, Jamobert and myself, we discussed this so many times in terms of how do we keep going. I have fresh memories of going to school, primary school, where our house was next to a road that was called Avenue de la Mort. If some of you know Bujumbura, Avenue de la Mort literally means it's because it was full of dead bodies. And I think understanding the conflicts from the lens, from the eyes of the people who live through these violations is really important. And that's why really we hold, Jubilee, we hold you in this moment. And that's why we need to have more and more of these type of events to understand the issues from the perspectives of the Congolese people. Yeah, otherwise we are always going to get wrong solutions. And that's why I wanted to have that perspective of the national process, because there is this kind of, the solution will come from the regional leaders, ESC, SADC, but yes, perhaps as Jamobert said, the national process is the one that really makes sense. Although it doesn't have traction, but yes, can we give chance to this national process, because they're the people who understand the issues. You cannot better understand the issues of the DRC more than the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church understand it. So yeah, we hold you in this moment, Jubilee. We hold all of you in this moment, and we do hope that the more you come speak to us, the more we understand better what's going on, and the more the world will be there to hold your hands to find lasting solutions. You go next.
My name is Omara Joseph. I come from South Sudan, one of the most fragile countries in the region. And I appreciate the organization of this day, because we feel we are the same like Congo. My question stems from the fact of the role of the regional bodies. And it goes directly to Comrade Sarah Jackson. For us in South Sudan, we have found ourselves swallowed between East Africa community, IGAD, AU, and also other global bodies. And if you follow the media, you find that a lot is going in South Sudan right now. We are in the brink of going back to a full-scale war as we talk right now. Things are falling apart, and this emanates from the fact that the violence played a part of trying to bring peace, and yet he was an adversary. Now that we have found violence in these same bodies. So in this regard of Congo, I would like to know from you, what role, just like what Christian said, what role we really, because we found that Congo is also swallowed between East African Community and SADC. What role will these two bodies in the region play in terms of bringing relative peace in the DRC? Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Can you take one more question? You want to respond to this? You can take one more question? Yes. One more question from, you can just introduce yourself and ask the question.
Mine is not a question, rather is a comment. I would like very much to thank the organizers of this event for recognizing and bringing on board the women representative, because we stand in solidarity with the women and minors in Congo who have gone through the gruesome phase of death, the gruesome phase of fear, the gruesome phase of war, and seeing guns and also their loved one being killed. So having to stand a few minutes and also take the cognition of that, respective of women and kids who have gone through this, is very, very important. And I'm very thankful for this. For us as Kenyans, my name is Rachel Wambui Wahome. I'm a human rights advocate. I'm a lawyer. I work within the women rights space. And we've been seeing through the social media, I think we saw that time in Congo where there was a breaking in the prison, and there were so many women who were raped, and it was so painful to watch such a gruesome thing happen to women and also kids. You know, there are things that we cannot even be able to comprehend on what is happening, but I'm very much happy that we are here today and we get to stand in solidarity with them, and we get to show them that we are there with them, we see them, we hear them, and we hope that as we are here, we can be able to support them in any way that we can, you know, we can be able to do by bringing up activism, by Amnesty doing such an activity to just show them that we are here, we hear them and we see them, and we can be able to support them. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the floor. Sorry. My name is Tuliza Moise. I'm from Goma as well. And I just, oh, sorry. Okay. All right. Paul. All right, thank you. Thank you for the floor. So my name is Tuliza Moise, and I'm also a Congolese from Goma. And I just came from Goma 3 weeks ago, just after M23 took over Goma. And I think I could have cried as he did, but we can't cry at the same time. So I think I'll just have some questions that usually go through my mind, and sometimes I don't have an answer. And well, so I went to Congo. I've been in Kenya for 7 years now.
Solidarity with you, if I hold you.
It's all right, it's okay. So I've been in Kenya for 7 years. And I went in Goma. I had some projects I wanted to proceed in Goma. And as I was planning to launch my projects, just 3 days before, 2023 took Goma. And after that, they cut off the internet for almost 1 week. So I just wanted to say that so that I asked the question that I had. Because I think the issue of Goma or Congo in general is not being taken seriously as it is. Because I was born in the war, and I've been raised in it, and it's been the story of our life. But when people talk about it, it's like just something that is happening, which is not the case. As I'm talking to you right now, the rebels came to my house looking for my dad, and right now He's trying to flee the country where he has a family. My mom and my sister are there. And I'm here just trying to hold it. But it's becoming so serious that we can't even talk about it. And people who have the right to do something, they take it as it's just a concert or something that is happening. So my question on this, why are we not taking the Congolese situation as serious as we took other situations? When we talk about Ukraine, we saw how much the whole world stood in solidarity, as you're saying it, for Ukraine. On the football pitches and everywhere we could see banners talking about stop war in Ukraine, and Russia got all the sanctions they could get. But when it comes to Congo, no one is talking about it. When you talk about the region parts, even people in Kenya, they don't even know what is happening on the neighboring country here in Congo. We are here as refugees. I can say that most of my friends who are here trying to flee the country where all our hope are, everything that we've been trying to do is there. The family, my mom is there, he's sick, she's sick. My dad can't even leave the country right now because they came to the house looking for him. And we're just trying to understand why is the matter of Congo not taken seriously as other matters have been taken serious. And what I would ask to our fellow region members, Kenyans and stuff, I saw what we did with Maandamano. We stood up, we talked about the thing that's happening, the government and all those stuff. I would just request you guys, if you could stand in solidarity as we said it, and put awareness really about what is happening in Congo. Because people in Goma right now, they can't tell you the traumas they are going through. Because sometimes you can wake up and tomorrow you're not there. That is what is happening in Goma. You might wake up and tomorrow you're not there. So you might wake up right now, before you reach 6 p.m., someone is dead. Like every day, every single day, we watch someone we know die. And all those things are not being documented as it should be documented. People are not talking it as much as they talk about other matters. So that is actually what I usually ask myself. Why is not the case of DRC taken serious as other matters? Because as they say, the peace of DRC is the unite of the whole Africa, because we are just at the same time, it's considered as the heart of Africa. So if the heart is dead, I don't know what Africa is going to do. Although we don't take it, I'm so sorry. I promised you that I wouldn't. I promised you guys that I wouldn't cry. But the more we talk about it, we think about it, and I'm so thankful for you guys to put this up. Because since I came in Kenya 3 weeks ago, I've been just indoors. I can't even talk about what is happening really to me. But it's not easy. And from someone who experienced it since they came to Goma on 28th of January, I couldn't leave my house for the whole month. The whole month I would just indoor. I couldn't even leave my room to fear that I might be taken as a youth and be taken wherever they want, or maybe killed like others who died. And no accountability for that. For the past, after they entered Goma, in 8 days, they counted almost more than 3,000 people killed. And that was 8 days after they entered Goma. But up to now, we don't know how many people have been killed. And every single day, I can promise you, if you go through someone in Goma on their status, there is someone who has been abducted or someone who has been killed. And all those, we are not seeing it. As I think sometimes I even blame Africans that we are not taking ourselves serious. But when it's something that's happening overseas, we take it as serious. But when it comes, like we're just 2 hours flight from here, but the things that are happening there, not even And I feel bad when even media in Kenya don't talk much about the situation in Congo. And I think that is my worry, that we are not taking the matter as serious as it is. So my question was, why are we not taking the Congolese situation as important as it is? That was my question.
Power to you, Moise. Yeah, I have nothing else to add. Just in terms of the question, how do you feel? I noted at least 3 concrete questions that I think you could pick up from. But if you want to perhaps add one more, we have 2 more. Okay, can you just respond to the first batch so that we don't lose the how you put the.
Thanks, Christian. I mean, just first of all to say to the Congolese colleagues comrades who've spoken up tonight, we see you, we hear you, we stand with you, and we see the toll that it takes to speak up when your compatriots at home can't. And we hope that the world is moved to act. I'm just going to take the question from our comrade from South Sudan, and I think as I was speaking this evening about regional actors, it feels like a very poignant day to do so. You know, we are so aware of what is going on in your country that is, it seems, teetering on the brink of conflict again, and that today the IO has, in essence, said that the peace agreement no longer stands. And so we're looking at one country where a peace agreement is falling apart, not just the first peace agreement, but the revitalized peace agreement. And then we're saying, can regional actors play a role in resolving Congo's crisis, right? It brings me back to what you said about the Catholic Church. You know, maybe it's really time to invest elsewhere. But I think because of the regional nature of the conflict in Congo, the region inevitably will have a role to play. And if they're not part of the solution, they will be spoilers to whatever is sought. So their role is evidently going to be important. And I think that's where what Jean-Maubert said, that the church effort is meeting with leaders and people around the region is so important. But coming back to the way that the peace process in South Sudan was handled, and I think civil society then did have a seat at the table, right? Civil society were deeply engaged with the process both times. Maybe not in the way that you would have liked, maybe not to the extent that you would have liked, but probably I think more so than anything we've seen on the SADC or EAC processes. So that's really a question for the room. What would Congolese and regional civil society engagement with these peace initiatives look like? How do you learn from the South Sudanese experience of saying, we expect to be engaged in this, we expect to be part of this, and we're calling on, you know, regional colleagues and regional funders to make that possible for us. So I think that's something maybe we need to think about more as we move forward. But our solidarity also to South Sudanese living through this once again, to Ethiopians, Somalis. It really is a moment where we are seeing a resurgence in conflict across almost the entire region. And so I think that's, you know, where that question of solidarity also comes in. These struggles have to be connected from a citizen perspective, from a civil society perspective. There has to be a broader outlook to this. What that looks like, that's a collective endeavor, but there has to be something bigger, because what has happened has not worked, and we cannot keep finding ourselves in these situations.
So thanks, Sarah. Jean-Maubert, if we could quickly go through the 2 questions from Vidal in terms of the colonial legacy and resources.
Thank you. First of all, to my friend Jubilee and Moise, I mean, we have to struggle constantly, not to cry. I myself got a bit emotional when my brothers were singing. Despite that song being one of the songs that I've heard, I've listened to multiple times, the idea of, so he was basically singing, I'm leaving, but I will be back tomorrow. And tomorrow could be in 1 year or in 10 years, but I will be back. Traveling is not death. I'm not going to die, I will be back. We will be back in our home. Our people will be back in their houses, their fields, their villages, and we will live in peace in that country. Let's live with that hope. And fight for it, of course. Hoping itself is not sufficient. So to Bidal, and thanks as South Sudanese, I know that you are also experiencing a lot, and we are neighbors, so we share that suffering in many ways. So on your questions, of course, the arbitrary drawing of borders plays a role in the conflicts. But that region is not the only place where borders were drawn arbitrarily. There are other regions in Africa, actually the whole of Africa, but we don't have such violence in all of those regions. So there are other factors. And the border will play a role, maybe will amplify or be used as an excuse or instrumentalized. But I believe that there are other reasons, including the failure of the state, which also has reasons, explanations. The way DRC was built, it was actually the first name of DRC was Free State. And I think they meant it, literally. It was like a free trade state in quotes, where everyone among the powers then would go and do business. And us, the people, never mattered. Yeah. We never mattered then, we don't matter today, as my friend is saying. And now the question of resources, of course. So there is this narrative that there is a scramble for the resources, and it is true. But it is not the only explanation, as I said. Identity issues. I think for the Kivus, for the Eastern DRC, before even you consider coltan or gold, scramble for coltan or gold, there is a scramble for land. Land. That's the main resource in that region, because everyone needs it. People can live without gold. I was born in that region. I know many people who are here. We've never seen raw gold, most of us, or raw coltan. But land, everyone needs it to live, for their house, to grow crops, for livestock and other means. So when you are denied the land, especially as Africans, you are denied life, basically. And that's the main issue there. The other question was on, if I may say just quickly on Jubilee's comment, people don't get the problem right. You are right, my friend. And I think the first sign of solidarity, genuine solidarity, is to educate yourself about the issue. Before you even get to speak out, what are you speaking out? Do you actually understand? So we have an opportunities to read books, to understand different versions, different sides of the conflict, to watch movies when they exist, and then to make your opinion, but the right opinion, hopefully, or a balanced one on the matter before you can actually speak out. I think that's extremely important. And I don't think even our leaders understand. When President Ruto came to power, the first action, President Uhuru first, as I was saying, we have the same actors, same problems, same recipe. that have been playing out for 30 years. So it was interesting to see how Uhuru, who sponsored the deal between Kabila and Tshisekedi back in 2019, then he's currently one of the mediators, right? So this guy, he couldn't stand, he was then the president, he could have stood out and said, you know, you need to respect the people's will. People have voted for X, let X lead. And that's how you give people agency. And in the long run, that would have probably gained some result. But he he sponsored a deal to steal people's votes, and then he's mediating the conflict that resulted from it. That's the irony. And then he sent troops. When after DRC joined the EAC, as Sarah was mentioning, the first action that EAC took was to send in troops. Troops to fix what problem? And I remember that back then telling people, there is no military problem there. So there is no problem that you're going to solve with the army. So if that tells that, what I learned from that is that either they don't understand or they don't care about the solution. What role for, I think Sarah has answered that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, those were the two main questions. So now I want perhaps to take 1, 2, 3, and then we can close. Just really quickly, if you can be very, is this working? Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Raphael. I'm an advocate of the High Court here in Kenya. Well, I have two questions. One is, what are the efforts that are in place to really, so to speak, to humanize the conflict? Because for us here, how we view it, it's just a power struggle. But from the testimony of those that have been through the conflict, it is a personal experience that has a human element to it. So what are the efforts that are there maybe to bring that human element to the conflict so that we can be able also across the globe and across the continent to resonate on that level that this is something that is happening to real human beings that can also occur to us. Or maybe that should be the next frontier that we should be thinking about in advocating for justice for Congo. And the second question is, what is the justice that when we talk about justice and accountability, what does it look like for the people in Congo? Is it retributive? Is it conciliatory? Is it restorative? Or is it a mixture of both? So that we can be able to amplify and advocate in such a way that really resonates in what they want to accept as justice on their part. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, those are very excellent questions at the heart of what most of the civil society in DRC are working on. So thank you so much, Raphael.
Hi, everyone. My name is Naomi Barasa. I'm a human rights activist. I want to start by honoring the pain and the courage of our comrades. This whole session has made me very emotional, and I just want to honor that. Thank you for taking the courage to speak and share your experience. Thank you, Amnesty, for convening this, because we need to be reminded, and we need to be reminded loudly, that Ubuntu, and I really love the Shona version. When you say hi to a Shona in Zimbabwe, when you say, how are you? They'll say, I am well if you are well. I love that. So if DRC is not well, if Sudan is not well, if South Sudan is not well, if Uganda is not well, we are pretending to be well. And that is really disturbing for me. It's really hard to say this, but no one is immune from this situation, including Kenya. And looking at how things are unfolding in this country, I do not want to be a prophet of doom. No one is immune. So we really need to think about cross-border power and power of the people, for that matter. It's important to remind us that the oppressors are very united. The oppressors are very organized. When they want to harm human rights defenders, civilians, in whatever country, our countries will stand in solidarity with them in the harming. We have seen what Kenya does to people who flee to this country. Last month but one, we've been at it on Kizza Besigye and the other prisoners, political prisoners. So if the oppressor, with all the machinery, with all the state resources, are organized and united, do we have the option of not being organized? We must organize. There's no option. So that's my first, and I really do not have a question, I'm sorry. I wanted to say that there are two things I would want to suggest. And looking at solidarity, for me, solidarity is a really radical political concept. And radical solidarity is being able to accept that I will stand with my brother and sister, but it might come with a cost. So we call it costly solidarity, and it's fine for us to stand with our comrades. We need to, and I'm really talking to Amnesty and Human Rights Watch, because at the moment I can say you are the people we can say who might have the capacity to convene us. Can we go beyond ad hoc? We were here a month and a half ago to discuss Uganda and Kizza Besigye. We are here today. Next month we'll be here or at Human Rights Watch office to discuss another country or another situation. Is it time we sat down to discuss proactive solidarity, which will include proactive organizing and activism that is cross-border, so that even the AU and our various governments will know that we are watching and we are demanding for accountability. And having said that, I want to propose two things. Number one, if you can help us continue convening to plan, may I suggest that we stage sittings to all embassies in this country for AU that are in this country and ask them, each embassy, what are you doing about the DRC situation? The other suggestion I have is that can you help us, not necessarily with money resource, financial resource, but resources that will be able to visibilize the situation. The media is not talking, and you will all agree with me. Rachel talked about Palestine. We know what social media has done on the Palestinian situation. Otherwise, for over 70 years, the story was always a single story and a single story of oppression. So we know what social media can do, and we know what people can do if they come together to create a narrative that humanizes and dignifies people, a narrative that also gives people agency. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Naomi. I think community organizing has to be at the center, and we are very glad of those two concrete suggestions. Okay.
Okay, my name is Victor Muturi. I'm from Radio France International Kiswahili Service in Nairobi. Maybe my first question goes to Human Rights Watch. You said that maybe you can give us data on maybe how many refugees who came up, especially when M23 came to capture the Bukavu and other towns in eastern DRC. And my second question, pengine kwako Jean, naweza kuuliza tu swali kuhusu, sijui kama naelewa Kiswahili, na pengine naweza kuuliza tu, kuna hivi majuzi kuna taarifa kwamba Tshisekedi alisema kwamba ataunda serikali ya umoja wa kitaifa. Je, hali hiyo imefikia wapi? Alafu swali la pili ni kuhusu ule mji wa Walikale ambao waasi wa M23 walisema kwamba wataweza kuachilia ili kuongeza ile mikakati na mchakato wa kuleta amani, hasa baada ya ule mkutano wa Tshisekedi na Kagame kule Qatar. Pengine hayo ni maswali matatu ambayo niko nayo. Pengine hadi sasa hivi hiyo mji walisema kwamba wataweza kuachilia. Je, wamewaachilia mji huo ama bado wanaendelea kudhibiti? Asante.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we're going to take these 3 last questions and then close the event, unless there is any one last burning question or intervention going one. Okay, no. Go on.
Our panelists will be here for some time to take questions from journalists.
Okay. We can ask them at the end. But yeah, there were 2 concrete questions from Raphael, and then a few other more questions from, sorry, I didn't catch your name. Victor. And I think the first one on effort for humanizing the situation, Clem, if you want to take that one, how can we humanize the situation? Because it's got about the human rights and humanitarian situation. And perhaps the justice question, what does justice look like? It's a long debate that Amnesty and Human Rights Watch and other Congolese human rights organizations have been going through. And then Jean-Maubert will take up the question that have been asked. If we have time, Rachel can come back again for those concrete solidarity questions. Or even humanism as well, humanizing the situation. Yeah.
So, I mean, on efforts to humanize the conflict, I think it goes back to hearing the testimonies of those who are directly affected by it, and I think the interventions that we had tonight by Jubilé and Moïse are probably the most powerful interventions, because we feel the suffering that you've been through and the concerns you have for your family, and it does make us feel like we want to stand up in solidarity with you. And so those really are the voices that need to be prioritized. And I agree with Moïse that they've been almost lost. And I think part of that is seeing how the M23 has very effectively shut down the space for civil society and media. And that's not to say that it was perfect before. It's been under pressure and threat from the Congolese government for some time. But the level of repression that we're seeing now is really quite terrifying. And finding a way, I think, for Congolese, very vibrant and active civil society to find avenues and platforms for that voice to be heard more strongly, I think would be really a really important step to humanizing, again, the conflict and showing the suffering that people are experiencing. I think, also it has been challenging, and this partly goes to your question about displacement, but in the last few weeks or couple of months, there's been hundreds of thousands of people that have been displaced by the offensive on Goma and in Bukavu. I mean, the exact data, I'm unable to tell you, but for example, we know that there's over 65,000 people who fled into Burundi, and Burundi is already a state that's in a really dire economic and political crisis, and where people are struggling to survive. And so providing the humanitarian assistance that they need is a huge challenge. And so, displacement, I think, also means that you don't have a chance to give a voice to people because the priority is survival and getting to somewhere safe. And so that does mean that I think the suffering from the crisis gets lost behind numbers and the broader geopolitical kind of games at stake. On the question of justice, I think Jean Maubert spoke about it very, very eloquently. There's different levels of justice that we can hope to see, but when you have so many victims of human rights violations, and now a situation, at least in the East, where what kind of judicial mechanisms at a local level really exist when the M23 has taken over these administrative structures and is putting in place its own justice at the really local level. That's a huge challenge. But I think going after, as Jean Maubert said, the high-level actors that have been involved in this conflict or previous iterations of this conflict is a first step, and that can be done through international mechanisms and the ICC. I know we don't all agree on the question of sanctions, but sanctions is a way also of naming and targeting individuals for their responsibility in the conflict. And then, of course, at the domestic level, at the national level, pushing the Congolese government to put in place justice mechanisms that or at least start procedures that will allow prosecution of those responsible, not just from the M23 side, but also from their own side. The Congolese government's responsibility for human rights abuses, for a long time needs to be addressed, and more specifically for this conflict with the M23, the huge damage that has been caused by the Congolese army and its decision to ally itself with abusive armed groups, for which no one has been really held accountable, will need to be addressed.
Yeah. And if I might just get back on that question of justice options, it has to be both. Because there have been few initiatives, or there are few initiatives where Congolese government is trying to do reparation, but as long as these big people are not held accountable, it's a futile exercise that we are doing, and we go back again. Thomas Lubanga, he was at ICC. The guy was locked at ICC for whatever he did in Ituri. Today he has announced again another armed group. It's really, yeah, so as long as they are not taking seriously, and the big people, so Thomas Lubanga might be there, but yeah, there might be someone behind Thomas Lubanga. So what are the interests of Thomas Lubanga? Who is behind Thomas Lubanga? So if we do not have our heads of states accountable, that's why I like that idea of going to camp at AU embassies. Yeah, they need to stop. Jean Maubert. Kwa Kiswahili.
That's not very kind to test me in front of all these people. So serikali ya umoja. I don't know how to go about this. Does everyone understand Swahili in the room? Almost everyone. Anyway, so President Tshisekedi announced that he wanted. I will come back to Kiswahili, maybe in private. That he wanted to form a government of national unity as a way of creating cohesion internally and then addressing the conflict. But this is a purely political tactic and nothing more. So as a matter of fact, the current government that he leads was named Union Sacrée, Union Sacrée de la Nation. That means sacred union of the nation. And it brings together, it's a large coalition of political parties or political leaders from different regions and backgrounds, including people who were with former President Kabila and other opposition groups. So it's already a government of national unity somehow. And announcing a new government of national unity is nothing, there is nothing new basically. The other interesting thing with that, I mean, I don't think it's going to lead to anywhere. So he probably hoped that he would convince those who were still in the opposition, those who still criticize the government, to join him. Because he's not afraid of the suffering of Moise and his dad, of our parents. He's afraid of his regime scrambling, right? And he wanted to bring together as many people as he could to strengthen his own regime. Now, interestingly, and for the first time to my knowledge in DRC history, most of the opposition parties have refused to join that government. And this is really major from a political point of view in DRC. He will still form that government, which he will name whatever he wants. It's no longer sacred. Maybe he will find some other nice adjective, but that won't fix the problems. Walikale, it's now, since people like talking about minerals, Walikale is also one of the richest regions in Eastern DRC with diamonds, gold, tin, and so on and so forth. Actually, it is home to the world's fourth largest tin production mine. And the rebels said that they were leaving the city after taking it over to give a chance to the peace process, whatever. I believe it was another tactic by the rebels. It was never genuine. It was all these processes, if you like, seem to be aiming to gain time for both parties, but especially for the rebels, because they have the military superiority. So if they are buying time, it is in their most interests. So it was a tactic to show that they are willing to give a chance to the Qatar-led process or other processes, and that they were willing to engage. But if you remember, just a few days before that, they had shunned the political dialogue that was convened by Angola in Rwanda after Tshisekedi finally accepted to talk with them. They shunned this meeting just to come up the next day and say, we are aiming to have a ceasefire. The situation now in Walikale has not changed. In fact, it seems to be deteriorating. As we sit here, I saw a last update. There has been a bombardment in Walikale, and at least apparently an airplane operated by, I don't know who, was bombarded in Walikale by the Congolese army. So I wouldn't be surprised if tonight or tomorrow we hear that the war has resumed completely in the area. May I say something on Naomi's suggestions? Sure. So thank you a lot, Naomi, for being action-oriented. I think we need that solidarity and those kind of actions. We need more awareness as well among the Kenyan community and other people who are around. But I also want to emphasize that, I mean, I'm keen to, of course, discuss with you and other colleagues who are here on how we can make that happen. But I think as we do this, we should not forget that DRC conflict is not the only conflict in the region, and other conflicts deserve attention. So the cost of solidarity that you were mentioning, maybe there is an interest in, since Nairobi is a hub, a regional hub, maybe it would be more cost effective if we could think of something that addresses other situations as well. As much as Moise was rightly saying DRC conflict doesn't get sufficient attention, it's not competing with the others. We are not in a logic of competition with Ukraine or Palestine or Sudan or Ethiopia, because those people also deserve our solidarity, human solidarity. So I feel like there is a way maybe we can think of organizing some sort of solidarity that addresses the most serious crisis in this region and gives a platform for all those people to come and join.
Yes, I would really love to end with those notes, and I'm sure that we can go on and on solidarity for DRC, on the Pan-African solidarity. Make the revolutionary Pan-African noise, and we have to get to that point. And it's clear in this room. We heard from South Sudan. We mentioned Sudan. We mentioned Ethiopia, Somalia, and on and on. So I do think that it's a task that it's a challenge that we take it up. Sure.
I think one event for us is to acknowledge and say sorry to our comrades from DRC, Southern Sudan, Ethiopia, that we are really sorry as citizens of this continent and as citizens of global community. We are really sorry. And then the last point that I really wanted to say, we need to invest a lot on narrative work.
Yeah.
Narrative work we can't ignore. And I can give you a good example. I know, Christian, you're looking at me because of time. However, please, even intellectual labor is important to share. Let me stand. Yes, please. When we started End Femicide in 2018, we got a lot of backlash. We were called lesbians, husband snatchers, prostitutes, and many things. It was painful. We kept on going until some NGO came and hijacked. Some stayed with us, some fought us, some did a lot of things. But it did not keep us all, including even some of the NGO, to the prize. The narrative is End Femicide in Kenya, and we are not with the narrative of project-oriented, of it's only married women, it's only women who identify as heterosexual that we can defend. Why am I sharing this? We need to maintain the narrative of all the countries. We need to maintain the narrative. If the oppressor is Rachel, name the oppressor.
Yeah.
Amnesty has its role. Human Rights Watch has its own role. Let them do their role. Naomi and myself, if our role is frontline, let's do frontline. Yeah. If it's convening the space, let's convene. We have these spaces in our communities, yeah? There's no need we say we have to wait for so-and-so to come and do it for us. Naomi, we have done it, we can do it. We have done it even in Justice for Burundi. Yes. When we went and we pushed, and now it was painful. Some of us got arrested. Yes. We can do it, all of us. The international community citizens, you can do it, also hold your own government accountable. Because it's no longer just about Africans. If it's about British citizens, hold your government accountable even in your own countries, if they're looking. Amnesty has a big number of followers and members. So let's also push it within different spaces with the same narrative.
Yeah.
Different spaces, let's name the countries. Let's not say it's Christian Amnesty. If it's 5 countries that are in crisis, Amnesty, you have the data. Please provide to us. Us English, you will refuse. Provide to us. Then we know these are the crises. Let's do research. If Amnesty, you have space for media, invite us. We talk. And invite our brothers here to come and talk. But one thing we can't ignore, and I'm requesting Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, and other civil society, and anybody who's watching, we must protect defenders.
Yes.
Let's invest on the protection of human rights defender. My brother, thank you. We hear you. We can't say we understand. We have not been in that situation. But we know, for some of us also who were threatened in this country last year from Ruto, we know now they play the game of gagging. So if they gag Mwikali today, Bilal, Commissioner, speak. Please, for those who have privilege, share your privilege. Please, for us to be able to win this war. Please, let's share our privileges. Let's share our spaces. Let's share our idea, our knowledge, our expertise. If you're able to talk to them, you talk their English, as we can talk here Swahili. And us, let's take Kenyans' responsibility of educating our citizens. What's going on? The region, let's take our responsibility. there's no right without responsibility. So it's also our responsibility to educate the public. Thank you.
I wouldn't add more. Let's take the discussion to Mathare, to Kamukunji, to Mombasa, to ensure that, to Ghana, Accra, very soon, to ensure that this trust and accountability, solidarity with the DRC, with South Sudan, with Ethiopia, Sudan, we keep on that track. On that note, George, Blessing, if you still have something for us as we close this session, will be very much appreciated. And journalists, are you available to take up interviews from journalists? So there are journalists who are here who would want to discuss. I know, Sarah, you need to rush. But really, thank you so much for your time, for your availability. There is also an action that we are doing. If you want to take a picture individually or collectively, feel free. After the song, we can take a group picture with this Solidarity with Congo after the song. Yeah.
Ngaina bongi zelaye Boboti kangai mosika aye Yangona koma kisemi telengano Kokola kisanga inzela aye Ndenge ninyonga yoko baninga Nakoluka nzela ya bomo Bobatwa mokili mabeyo Babo ingana zua Lobi Koko sing Take it back Sing Show me the way I can go Take it back, yeah Show me the way Take it back, yeah Show me the way I can go Take it back, yeah Show me, show me, show me Oh Botama ya mwanana Tongo ye Moye komisango yako sagana Butuina sango ya mawa Boka mobimbo hekole Ndenge ni nyonga yo baninga Nakolu kansela ya bomo Bobatwa mokili mabeyo Babo ingana zua lobiko Take it back, yeah Show me the way I can go Take it back, yeah Show me the way Take it back, yeah Show me the way I can go Take it back, yeah Show me. Thank you.
Asante sana, so much blessings. If you want to take a group picture, if you want to be part of it, yeah, it would be good. Karibu sana, yes. We show solidarity with the people in the DRC.
Your journalist wants me to speak in Swahili about DRC. Comment je vais même commencer à parler?
I think you're the one to know how to speak Kiswahili because me, I'm not.
Sasa unajua